This is episode 82 of the After Gambling Podcast, and for me, this is the most important episode I've ever done. Hey there, and welcome to the After Gambling Podcast. My name is Jamie. I am a former problem gambler. Now I haven't gambled in over 10 and a half years to do this little podcast to help other people start their journey towards recovery. To hopefully get to a place in their life where I am now, where I am free from my gambling addiction, and I'm actually moving towards a place where I'm just kind of free from addiction in general. It's never a perfect straight line, but I definitely feel like I'm in a much different headspace, just emotional space, than I ever was before, whether I was gambling or even before I was gambling. And so that's what I come on this podcast to try and share some of the things that have helped me get to the place where I am today, because I'm obviously very passionate about kind of paying it forward because I see how valuable it's been to my life. And for this topic today, it's important to me, as I said in the intro, maybe the most important podcast I've ever done, because it's the first time that I've tried to articulate this foundational belief that I've been developing over the past several years. So I'm going to try to articulate some of those points in this podcast, and it's why I've kind of moved to a place where I do the podcast about gambling addiction because it's what I know. But I also know my other addictive behaviors. And as I start to really pull back the onion and really dissect what's at the heart of all these things, they're so similar. And it's why it's been one of those things that I believe if we would all come together from all these different addictions, and I'm going to talk about mental health disorders and diseases throughout this episode, I think if we all kind of came together and stopped focusing in these silos, I think we could do a lot of good. So I guess right off the bat, that's one of my kind of goals or objectives, and why I think this is such an important one for me is because I really want to see us look beyond these specific outcomes, as I would say, and really kind of get to the heart of understanding addiction as a whole, and more importantly, and that's going to be the majority of this episode, figuring out how to communicate mental health addictions to the public in order for them to get to more successful outcomes. Because I think it's something that we just haven't explored enough, and I don't think we're doing a very good job of it, and I'll highlight why in this episode. Now, I think it'll be helpful to give kind of a quick overview of gambling disorder as it's currently known. I am not an expert in this stuff, and I'm not going to try and go into the nitty gritty of it. You're free to Google search it and get better insight from people that are more knowledgeable. But essentially, the gambling addiction became a gambling disorder in the DSM-5, maybe even DSM-4. But for those that know, I mean, this is kind of the big book, which I believe is put up by the American Psychiatric Association, and it is kind of the reference manual for diagnosing and prescribing treatment for mental health disorders. It may do more than that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I just know the gambling stuff. But essentially for gambling disorder, this was a big thing because it finally opened up some doors for treatment that weren't there before. People would look at gambling disorder and say, okay, is this something that's real? Is it something that we should be responsible for treating? And so once it went into the DSM-4 or 5, it opened up those doors, which I'm going to say up front is a great thing. And with this inclusion of gambling in the DSM-4 or 5, all of a sudden, as I said, there were more treatment options, and advocates for problem gamblers, trying to get them more help, get more resources, really started to lean on the DSM to just kind of say, look, this is a serious thing that we need to start addressing and applying more resources to. So again, a great thing. Now, with that understanding of gambling addiction, sort of where we are with gambling disorder, I want to step back and kind of put on my brand and marketing cap and talk about some of the things that I really have issues with when we're talking about mental health these days. And the great thing is we're talking about mental health. It's becoming something that is much more part of discussions, from politics to sports to just everyday society. We're all talking about mental health and sharing our mental health struggles more and more openly, which is a great thing. And it's opening doors for treatment. It's reducing stigma, shame, all of those things. Now, me as the person that obsesses with story and words and just the messaging behind things, the place where I get a little bit uneasy is when we're talking about all these mental health conditions. I worry that we're not doing a very good job of describing what we actually mean when we say mental health disorder or mental health disease, which are kind of some of the main ones that I see used. And I think there's a lot of confusion out there, mostly because we're still exploring this. We're still trying to figure things out. right? We're trying to see what role does genetics have? What role does environment have in leading to these addictions? And as I said, the marketer in me just wants to pump the brakes and say, whoa, let's make sure that we're being very clear about what we mean when we say somebody has a mental health disorder or they have some kind of mental health issue that we describe as a disease. And for me, when I first started thinking about this a few years back, I went to kind of the dictionary and looked up what disease was. And in Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says a disease is a condition of the living animal or plant body or one of its parts that impairs normal functioning and is typically manifested by distinguishing signs and symptoms. Now, I think this messaging has gotten really convoluted. And now me, as the person that obsesses with words and messaging, I would make sure that we are crystal clear and try to describe it in as simple a terms as possible so that the most people are able to understand what we're saying when we say that they have a disorder or a disease. And I would simply say, look, when we say mental health disorder or mental health disease, that's just our fancy way of saying that you're not getting those optimal outcomes, right? There's something going on in your brain that's not leading to the desired outcomes that you want for your life. And so that's why we use those terms, but don't overthink it. That's just kind of how we describe it. And then I would go on to say that, look, we're still exploring this stuff. We don't know how much of it is genetic, or maybe it's just a thought that you have. In a lot of cases, for me, and I think for a lot of other people, it's as simple as, look, you have a couple of thoughts in your head or a story in your head that you keep telling yourself, and it's leading to these negative outcomes. And it's leading essentially to that disease, which is, in our case, in so many people's cases, a brain that's just not working optimally. But instead, I think when we hear disease and we hear disorder, we tend to think these grand things, especially as the recipient. We're like, oh, crap, I got a disease, I got a disorder. And nobody's out there saying, hey, it may be as simple as just this story you have in your head that we just need to diagnose it, do some CBT, unwind that story, and then create a new story that is actually true and beneficial and eliminates the disease. But instead, we understandably are so focused on ensuring that people are able to get treatment. And so we build it up and we're like, hey, these people have a disorder. They have a disease. And pretty soon the lines get crossed. And the messaging that was intended for a legislator or to invoke some kind of change in the system instead is received by that person that we've told has a mental health disorder. And now we're building up the importance of it and how difficult it is to overcome. And so of course they're going to struggle. And of course these things are going to feel daunting. And if you don't believe me on this, go check out Carol Dweck and her book Mindset and all the work she's done about how much framing of stories and the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset has on outcomes. And once you read through that, it's almost hard to look at this any other way, but to see the importance in telling this story accurately and in a way that people can use to change their lives. That's the beauty of some of the mental health disorders. In my opinion, they can be extremely treatable. But I just think we're going to get a whole lot more people to buy in and start to try to identify what those things are and reconnect those dots if we start telling them a little bit more of an appealing story, which is you got these stories in your head. We just need to identify which ones are causing the negative outcomes, and let's just try and restructure them, see what happens. And I truly believe, the marketer in me believes that if we took this shift and we stopped emphasizing these disorders and diseases, which the person that has it views as this daunting uphill task that seems impossible. They can't even tell me why I have it. And here I am stuck with this thing for life. I mean, how many times do we tell the story of addiction that, well, this is just something you have and you're stuck with for the rest of your life? I mean, is that true? Are we really stuck with stories in our head for the rest of our life? We don't think that it's possible that if it is as simple for some people, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but if for some people it's as simple as it was for me in hindsight, it was difficult in the journey, but I wish somebody would have told me up front, look, it's as simple as let's just go in and identify what stories that you're telling yourself that just aren't true. We'll try and recreate some new ones and we'll replace them, and then bing, bang, you're done. Go down the road. Enjoy your life. But that wasn't the story I was told, and not the story that other people were told all along the way, which was, oh, you got this disease, you got this disorder. It's bad, man. You're stuck with it. It's the rest of your life. I mean, all you can do is maintain it. There's no getting over it. And personally, based on my experience, I think that's flat out wrong. And based on the experiences of other people that I have known and seen work through their issues as well, it's not true in their situation. So if it's not true in our situation, how many other people have been saddled with that overwhelming uphill task, and they just kind of said, oh, well, and they gave up. That sucks. So I know this has been a little bit of a rant, but it's something that's just been bothering me, as I said, for a long time. And as I look on social media and I talk with other people and I see how people are just absorbing these stories of mental health and applying them to their lives and taking on these identities, and which in a lot of cases I see just leading further down the rabbit hole of depression and anxiety. The people aren't getting better. The stories that we're telling people are not helping them. And so while it's great that we're having all these discussions about mental health, we need to make sure that we're having a good discussion and we're using talking points that actually benefit people rather than just lead them down a deeper, darker hole. So finally, I want to finish this up by saying to anyone that's listening to this, that's dealing with a gambling addiction or any addiction in general, I just want to say, challenge everything. Don't believe the common narrative, and always start off with the easiest solution. And I'm telling you from my experience, if I could go back and do it all again, I would tell Jamie of 10 years ago or even back into the future, look, man, you got some bad thoughts. They're wrong. They're just not right. Like, you're connecting dots that just aren't there. And you're covering them up with emotions. And a lot of this stuff is emotional stuff that you're going to have to work through. And get a professional to work through some of these issues and understand that they're all connected. But ultimately, don't overthink it. Don't get beaten down by it. Because when we say you have this disease or disorder, but what we really mean is just we want to get you back to functioning at full capacity, right? So all this says is that those stories in your head, those are the things that we just need to go in and just tweak them. Not going to be a big deal, and it's something that we can go in and work on and figure out what we need to unpack and then tell a new story. So know that if it's true for me, there's a good chance that it might be true for other people in the world. And I don't think we need to be saddled with these labels or these views that we are just infinitely unchangeable. I don't believe it. Humans have done way too many incredible things for me to believe that story is true. So I figured this one might inspire some interesting feedback. I look forward to, as I said, I challenge all my thoughts. So I would encourage you to challenge my thoughts. Let me know what you think about it. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What do you think might be a better path forward with the marketing, with the storytelling that we have? These are the discussions I want to see happen. These are the discussions I've been kind of sitting here just like gritting my teeth and like waiting for these stories to happen, these discussions to happen, because I think these are the stories that need to happen and the discussions that need to happen in order for us to get progress so that we can truly make some really good ground up on mental health issues. Now, finally, I am a marketer. I work in brand and marketing, so use this for informational purposes. I share my story and my thoughts just to kind of inspire other people to have some thoughts and ideas. But please, if you're listening to this and you have an addiction, please seek out the help of a professional. This is just for informational purposes only. So get a doctor, get a therapist, work with a financial planner if you're having some financial difficulties. As I always say, I don't have any letters before or after my name, so keep that in mind. And then finally, music for the show is Something Elated by Broke for Free and is licensed under the Creative Commons license. My name is Jamie, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.